Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sweet Take, the Paddock's best kept secret and milkshakes interview series. Today we are joined by creator, journalist, and presenter Michelai Graham, whose work is redefining what it means to cover F1 sports and lifestyle with her unique voice. We met Michelai at the Miami Grand Prix and knew right away that she gets it. So, Michelai, welcome to the Sweet Take.
Thank you. I can't believe we're here. This has been a little bit in the works. I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I feel like it was a little bit of fate when we met at the Hot Lap. And
Yes.
I remember I had, pretty much just started Milkshake at that time. And you said to me,
Yeah.
I think I'm following you guys. And I was like, what? It was so
I
cool.
was, and I'm like like literally the branding so cute, and like I told her I was just looking for different communities of just women who are in the space, and I followed you so early on, and I'm like, oh my God, when you hit 10K after Miami, I was like on Instagram, my mind was blown. So this is crazy.
Wow. I appreciate all of the support and early
Yeah.
support as well. Why don't we first start with an introduction of yourself, your background, and how you got into this world?
Yes, of course. So I originally started out as a tech reporter, but even before that, growing up in California, I always knew I wanted to be a storyteller. I took journalism classes, yearbook classes growing up, and I was always in AP English. I was excited for the writing classes, and everyone's like, ill, writing, reading, like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, the math, the numbers, that stuff didn't come to me. And I'm like, I could get it done, but it wasn't my favorite. So I knew I would do something with words or storytelling. So going into college, I went to Michigan State for undergrad. I got my BA in journalism and my BA in media and information, which was like telecommunications. And then from there, I moved to DC, was looking for jobs, and this was 2016. And the job market was a very interesting place at that time. So I actually moved to DC on my third day. I walked into a bar and got a hosting job. And that job, and I tell people this all the time, that job, that those references, those managers, they got me my full-time job in journalism. So I ended up getting a digital communications job, went to grad school, and got my master's in journalism and public affairs. And during that time in grad school at American University, I started to go to a lot of hearings on the Hill. Of course, being in DC, it was a part of it. So, around that same time, a lot of the social media CEOs and tech CEOs were testifying about just privacy, data, all of that. And I just literally dove head deep into that stuff because I thought it was interesting. I'm like, I'm going to pick the fun ones. And I'm like, oh, Instagram CEO, like Facebook, all of those, Twitter, everyone was going to testify. And it was a big deal. And that spiraled me into tech. So I was reporting on DC tech startups for a little while. And then I really dove into a lot of a broader tech. Then the pandemic hit, started freelancing, went out on my own, and started working with Boardroom. So I started with Boardroom as a freelancer. And then I came on full time to do the tech coverage, started the tech newsletter. And then once I fell in love with motorsport, I started covering F1. So definitely got into F1 by way of the tech. So I was learning a lot about the cars, the cameras, the broadcasts. And then in this last year and a half, I've really ramped that coverage up.
Wow, what a great story. And I love how it was just like
Yeah.
an awesome chain of and series of events. I remember the
Yes.
Mark Zuckerberg hearings on
Yeah.
in DC and you were there for it. And what a unique entry point into F1 because I talked to a lot of people and I don't think I've heard anyone say, "Oh yeah, I got into F1 because of tech."
Yes, I know, and it's so interesting. Like a lot of my friends who I'm close with in F1, they literally got into it because of the sport of it, and then the drivers and the people. And I'm like, I learned about the Lewis Hamiltons and all of the big people after I started learning about the teams, the cars, the tech, and then I was like, all right, I'm in it. Now I'm a fan.
Was there a moment when you were like, get F1 now, or a moment that got you hooked on the sport?
Definitely have to say, after I went to Las Vegas GP last year, I had been like casually watching it for about a year and a half. And then when I got a full race weekend experience with MasterCard, it literally dove me in deeper than I could have ever imagined. And it was crazy because I'm like, that wasn't my first race weekend. It was just my first full race weekend. Actually I was with AWS in Canada for Canadian GP last year as well. And we were learning a lot about like the technology on the cars. We got to go to the broadcast center, and everyone's like, how is your favorite team not Ferrari when that was your first brush with F1 in real life? Like we were in the garage, like we were deep in it. And I was like, I don't know, something about McLaren literally just stole my heart. So once I got that full race weekend, I was like, all right, I'm in it. But I had been a casual watcher for almost a year and a half, almost 2 years up to that point.
Gotcha. Well, we will definitely dive into some of your
Yes.
past experiences in more detail in a little bit, but I first want to learn a bit more about you. So you wear a
Yeah.
lot of hats, right? You write content, you present content, you
Yeah.
run a podcast on the side. Do you have a common thread that you kind of anchor your content and the way that you present around?
Yes, for sure. Honestly, like when people ask me like what's your passion? I don't say it's writing. I don't say it's, being on camera talent. I always say it's storytelling because that comes in so many, different shapes and sizes. Like I'm writing a newsletter, I'm writing articles, I'm doing on camera, videos and explainers in the office or at home. I'm on the ground covering these events, but I anchor all of that in storytelling and above all, like simplifying things that are going on in the world, especially across tech. I always say this tagline and people laugh, but I'm like, if my mom reads my newsletter or watches a video and she doesn't understand what I'm talking about or, what I'm writing about, then I didn't do my job. Like, I want everything from the top down, any type of audience, any type of person to understand something. So oftentimes you'll rarely ever see me making a video of like breaking news about this one thing happening. If anything, I'm doing the second day story, breaking down why that story is important or what it is. Or honestly, sometimes I'm just like defining words and things that are happening. And I've found a really good audience with that type of content. And it's also just helped me be a little less competitive in the space. I mean, being a creator and just in this world of being online, there's just so many different ways to tell a story. And I really just try to use case. Like if I'm not explaining something, I'm showing you how I'm using it, whether that's a tech product or just something new that I've come across, or even how I watch F1. I'm always telling people about F1 TV. And yeah, just trying to just make sure people know just the basics of a lot of the things going on.
I think we have that in common because at
Yeah.
Milkshake, we also try to break down, racing is very technical, very complicated, but in
Mhm.
more basic, layman's terms language that anyone can understand because there's a
Yeah.
lot of new fans to the sport who want to understand it more, but there's definitely a learning curve when it comes to F1.
Absolutely. And it's like baseline learning the amount of drivers and how a race happens is easy. But then when you get into the tires, downforce, like
Right.
DRS, everything, you're like, wait, where did I just lose it? Where did I just
Even
lose it?
even how scoring works and points and
Oh
all
my
of that,
God.
it's
Yes.
complicated.
Very.
Let's talk a bit more about your work at Boardroom
Yeah.
because I know you said you started off as telling storytelling and tech, but I've
Yeah.
seen your work and it extends into sports and culture and
Yes.
lifestyle. What types of stories really get you up, in the morning and you love telling?
Yes, absolutely. I love the work I'm doing at Boardroom right now. I think when I started, I was covering a lot of tech, but also Web3, which just saying that out loud just feels like it was ages ago. But it was around the time a lot of athletes were investing in Web3 projects, NFT projects, and really getting in on, collecting NFTs and digital artifacts. And I came on at Boardroom to really dive into that type of coverage. We were doing a bunch of different partnerships and different storytelling. And then once that changed, I started covering big tech. And it was good, but I feel like there was just something missing on trying to plug together who our audience was and what I was covering because I was simplifying those tech topics. But Boardroom is a place that covers sports and entertainment and the cross section of culture across those different categories. So I started in recent months, I would say in the last year, covering a lot of entertainment, creator economy, which has been so fun, pop culture. I am a creature of culture. Like I am in this stuff every day. And I mean, I'm online, I'm in chats, I'm on Discord. I'm binging whatever I see everyone else binging online so I can honestly get in on the conversation and not just report on it. It got to a place where I was like, hey, I'm reporting these streaming numbers. I'm talking a lot about what's happening with Netflix and their audience. And I need to make sure that I'm consuming this content. So when I'm talking about it, I'm not just making sense, but I'm being honest in my reporting. So that kind of, grew into what I'm doing today. My newsletter was just rebranded to The Watch List. And it's not just
Mm.
about what you're watching on TV, it's about what you're watching online, what you're keeping up with in pop culture, what's going viral on the apps. And that has just cracked open a whole new world of coverage. So it's definitely been very fun. And I'm just really excited to bring all of my obsessions like Love Island and F1 and just all of the things that corners of the internet I find myself drowning in on TikTok into my day-to-day work. And people don't realize like this is a dream. Like, this is literally a dream to be like, nope, this is work. I'm doing work right now.
I am not going to lie. I have definitely binged your Love Island recaps. They're so entertaining and so in depth, and like there's so many nuances that you call out. It's very good. It's very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there certain stories or topics or categories that you find yourself more drawn to?
Honestly, I love being in the online chatter when a show is happening or something. Like it's just so much fun. And I have to credit Threads because I got on there literally 2 years ago when they launched the app, honestly, to report on it. I'm like, oh my God, like it's very rare that someone in my position of tech gets to be at the forefront or start of covering a platform when it, originally gets launched. And I just had a feeling that Threads, would be something bigger than what we expected. It wasn't just Meta launching another app. And I was right. And I was like, it's all about the algorithm. It's all about discoverability. And I find that whenever I'm yapping about something on there, like my people find me quicker and vice versa. Similar to TikTok. And so I try to just get in on the conversation. And like that's another reason why I got in on F1 is like I learned the tech of it. And then I was like, wait, there's a whole niche audience for this sport and the type of people that I'm looking for. And yeah, that's kind of what gets me excited. I'm also always binging something. I love covering streaming, really big on Peacock, really big on Netflix and just Apple TV Plus and following what these platforms are launching from how they market the shows, how they're casting them. This was my first year going to a lot of the upfront events in New York. So I was able to see, like, oh, this is what advertisers are putting their money behind, and then seeing all the trailers for the new shows. And I'm like, the business world of streaming is just so interesting to me. And I tell people all the time, like, this is the new age cable, and we're going to see some different bundlings. We're going to see some different partnerships across streaming platforms. But I don't think we're really ready for what's coming. I don't think we're ever going to go back to traditional cable.
Yeah, and I mean, as it relates to F1, there's a lot of news around Apple might be bidding for the rights for F1 in the US next year, which again, different wave in terms of coverage in traditional broadcasting, potentially more
Mhm.
streaming. So there's a lot of paths that are being crossed.
Yes, I said this a year ago when, we started learning more about the F1 movie and, you know, F1's media rights were up and I was like, Apple is the clear brand that should snatch it up. But like it's a big responsibility, especially since, we are into F1, but the US market is not as vastly into this sport as other markets are. So it is a gamble because this is also an important market to a lot of brands. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds. But in a perfect world, I'm already an Apple TV Plus subscriber. So I would love that because I'm worried because I'm like, wherever it goes, I'm like, if I have to get another platform or subscribe to another platform, I might freak out. But I do it.
Yeah, I do think it's a huge opportunity. We were just in London before Silverstone. It was the first time that I was in a major city where F1 is a big hub. And you can really feel like that generational knowledge of F1. It's built into
Yes,
their daily life, it's in all the stores and brands. And I think Apple could have that opportunity to insert F1 into the household. So it's very exciting
100%.
about how that could pan out. Okay, last
Absolutely.
question before we go into F1 itself. But you've had the
Yeah.
chance to meet tons of athletes.
Yeah.
And the concept of an athlete's personal brand and building a legacy outside of their sport, with culture and lifestyle and
Yeah.
some of their other endeavors, who would you say is the most interesting athlete in that realm that you've met? Could be someone in F1 or could be in a different sport that you've met.
I'm just gonna like throw a curveball here, and I had to look at my computer to make sure that I get their names right because I knew their first names, but I am also a really big WNBA fan, and I was just amazed at what the Stud Buds did during WNBA All Star Weekend. So it was Courtney and Atisha from the Minnesota Lynx, and they had matching hot pink hair. And I saw them everywhere the entire weekend, and I didn't catch on for the first day because I didn't see the news that they were doing their 72-hour stream. I didn't catch on to that. And then I was like, wait, my friends were texting me, like my homegirls who are not really even into WNBA, and I was there covering it for work. And they were like, oh my God, I'm obsessed. Can you please go find them? Can you please go do this? And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And I seen them walking around with their cameras, and I'm like, oh my God, they're doing a 72-hour stream. And like still, even we're a week away from WNBA, and still seeing the clips and the coverage from their stream is amazing to me. And I'm using them as an example of like these are two players who obviously grew a close friendship together. They wanted to get into streaming and they did it in an authentic way. Like it wasn't branded, they weren't doing anything special. They literally were like, come with us. Along the way of a WNBA All-Star weekend. Here's what it looks like. And I'm like, wow, I never even thought about from the player perspective how busy and what this weekend looks like. And then that mixed in with the partying and the celebration and just the closer moments of just seeing them vibe with everyone they came across was special.
I think we are in the age of like transparency and getting that
Yes.
behind the scenes look. So I love that. I hope that we see Max Verstappen behind the scenes,
Oh my God.
Monaco Grand Prix
Yes.
weekend, everything, his schedule, how hectic, but even all the preparation, like the mindset stuff. How do you calm down? And, that would be really awesome to see.
Yes. No, seriously, Lax was out honestly the person that came to mind when I was thinking of this too. Because it was so funny when everyone was in New York at the F1 movie premiere and he's like in the simulator. And I'm like, no, take me with you. If we can get a driver to do a 72-hour takeover like the Stud Buds did at WNBA All-Star, that would be game changing. FIA would hate it. They would
They
absolutely
would.
hate it, but I'm like, I mean, give it to us. That's what the people want. I literally
Yeah.
would, any driver at that. I'm like, it would just be so interesting because it's like, we already see these 3 day long weekends, but we don't see the full experience of what the drivers are going through. So it would just be interesting.
It would. That's a great segue into talking a little bit about your F1 experiences over the
Yeah.
last 12, 24 months. So you've
Yeah.
had the opportunity to go to a couple of races. I know you mentioned Miami, Vegas, and Canada. Can you share
Yeah.
with us some of your favorite memories from those
Yes,
races?
absolutely. So, Canadian GP last year was, of course, my first IRL experience. I was blown away by the Paddock Club. I literally was like, there's no way that this is a real place. I'm like, this is an adult's playground. Being in that experience, it's like endless food, champagne, viewing spots. And it's just interesting how different the Paddock Clubs are at each race. And I've seen them at all three of the races. And I'm like, wow, this is just such a different, unique experience to any other sport. And I just feel like F1 really got it right with that. But also, I just love seeing the teams at work. So I got to go into the garage in Canada. I also got to go into the garage when I was in Vegas. I was, with different teams. I was with Ferrari in Canada. I was with McLaren in Vegas. And it's just such a unique experience. It's so tense in there. Everyone is so focused, but like seeing how literally, like, people watch the sport and think it's all the drivers. When you see the brain power and the team that goes behind these things and just seeing everyone kind of do their part and seeing how confidently they have to make decisions so quickly and communicate with one another and not get flustered. It's not like, oftentimes in basketball or football, you see players kind of get flustered and throw the ball hard or they're offline chattering with someone mid game. I'm like, there's no timeouts, there's no breaks in F1. Once that race starts, it starts. So seeing how the teams communicated really like intrigued me, which is one of the reasons why I fell in love with McLaren so quickly. Is like they had two really good drivers. Last year, you would have probably guessed, probably would have assumed that Lando would just be so front run this year. And, being able to hear Oscar speak last year and seeing both his confidence, but his honesty and where he was in his sport. And then seeing during that break how much he trained and seeing who he is today. Like I gained a whole new appreciation, not just for him, but for the sport and what these athletes do, to train even when they're not in season, which it feels like they're in season all year round. So definitely some of my favorite moments. I have to call out my hot laps in Miami. I mean, that was just, and I got to do two, and I was grateful. I literally was like, what? My biggest thing I love is I love keeping my credentials from my events. Like, I'll send you a couple pictures, but I'm looking up right now. I have them like all lined up in my office. But doing that hot lap with Williams was it was just so beautiful because I didn't have any Williams connections. I went there credentialed for boardroom to Miami. So I was there as media, literally sweating, blood, sweat, and tears on the ground, capturing interviews and joking and jiving. And, all of the teams get all of the access to all the media there. And they saw my work that I do and invited me to come do a hot lap. And I'm like, moments like that where it's like, you're putting in the work and you make these connections with these teams makes you feel so much closer to the sport. And I'm like, now I'm a Williams fan as well. Like, how did I get here? I'm a fan of all the teams, truly, but I'm like, I have too many favorites now, and that's just not ideal. I'm like, I'm not that way about football. I'm not that way about basketball. But in F1, you truly fall in love with everything. So that was really special.
You do. I am a self-professed diehard Lando #1 fan, but I'm wearing a Williams shirt right now
Yeah.
because I was with them in London and also love them. And the drivers move around a lot, and you just fall in love
Yeah.
with different parts of the teams and the culture and different personalities. So it is really hard to pick a favorite, but
Yeah.
I totally hear you. So one
Yeah.
question, because when you were in Canada and Vegas, totally different tracks, right?
Yes.
Canada, classic, traditional daytime race.
Yeah.
Vegas, street circuit, nighttime, very cold. How
Yeah.
did the teams, because you talked about seeing teams prepare and how they execute these races, did they prepare and do things differently because of the different type of event and circuit that it was?
Yeah, I think one of the like interesting things I learned about the teams and drivers is how they train themselves to stay on schedule. You know, they have a really rigorous schedule. They wake up certain times of day and get active at odd hours of the day so they stay acclimated to all of the different travel that they do. So I found that that was very interesting. I think with Canada, which, this happens with Canadian GP often, the rain. Like it got rained out so often. Even the day we were on the track on Friday. We got to go to a practice and it stormed and practice got stopped, I think 3 or 4 times that day. And just seeing the teams just stay steadfast. It's like any other sport, any team, any like team leadership would be crumbling, at this point, seeing how the confidence of everyone was going down. But that doesn't happen in F1. Like it doesn't happen in F1 at all. Like just seeing how quickly and snappy all the teams are was very interesting in Canada. And then in Vegas, oh my God, I feel like it was just nonstop content coming in and things happening in the Paddock Club. Like I said, I was with MasterCard and McLaren. I was just amazed at how close you get to the drivers, how much entertainment they actually plan out because it is a nighttime race, it is a street race, it's Vegas. Like entertainment is a really big deal, probably bigger than a lot of the other markets. So there was always live DJs, there was live performances, there was a lot going on, but also seeing Lando and Oscar up close and Zach come in and talk to the Paddock Club. And at one point it was like, I'm pretty sure Oscar came up and talked to us like maybe an hour out from quality. And I was just like, these drivers are working around the clock when they're here these weekends. And again, not like any other sport. You're not really talking to the athletes that close to game time. So
Hmm.
it's just very interesting how they really like stretch out the scheduling of the paddock clubs because in Miami at another daytime race, it was kind of a chiller vibe. I feel like Vegas definitely brought that oons oons like something going on all the time in the paddock. But yeah, it's interesting nonetheless.
We need that behind the scenes vlog of them because their life is probably 5-minute increments. And
Oh
it
my
is,
God.
like their job is to be a race car driver. And then, but
Yeah.
it seems like that's only really 20% of their job when, 80% of their time is media, events, social filming, everything else that goes along with it. So, how do they compartmentalize themselves and still be able to perform? It's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's insane. Like even looking at after they win a race, how many boxes they have to check before they truly get to celebrate, which I still don't think them popping the champagne is them celebrating. That's them checking a box. They probably don't get to the true celebration until those cameras go off and they can go to the garage with their teams and really turn up. But yeah, it's amazing to me. I'm like, I wouldn't even be able to remember all of that stuff. So proud of you guys.
That's a good point. So let's talk about the hot lap a bit because that's where we met. I also did a hot lap.
Yes.
I was bouncing off the walls literally for
Yes.
24 hours after the adrenaline is so high, and you did too. So was there a
Yes.
difference from the first one to the second one? How would you describe both of them?
Yes, okay, so I loved my hot lap with Williams, but my Ferrari hot lap was with Maya. And I'm like, being able to be in the car with an icon, I literally was fangirling and I'm like, cause and I'm new to F1 too, so I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna know my driver. They don't tell you ahead of time any
No.
of that either. It's like you go in there, like you get your email, you go in there at that time, you sign the waivers and then you wait and then you walk out and it's like you might not. So being able to be in the car with Maya. It was just so funny because when we were walking up to the car, she was like, "Yeah, I've never done this before," and I was like, "Huh?" And I was like, "Oh my god, I'm freaking out!" But she was chilling, like she was just so chilling, and she honestly had just they had just wrapped up, F1 Academy, the F1 Academy race in Miami, and she literally was just sweat all over her, had just came from that right to drive for hot laps. And I'm like, again, to the point that these drivers are on the entire weekend of these races. And it was amazing being in the car with her. She was so chill. And it was just like, I'm in the car with an icon right now. Like, that's crazy. It's like when you're at these races as often and you get close to these people, you forget that they're real people. Being
Hmm.
in the car with her, like we were just laughing and she would go all the way and I would just be freaking out and I was cursing and I was like, I'm so sorry. And it literally is like you watch them from afar drive and it's like they're driving fast, but when you're in the car, feeling the force of your body move in different ways, I'm like, well, this is why they train how they do. Like I'm jerking all over and she's just like just sitting
So,
back riding. I was like, this is amazing to me.
yeah, I remember when we were sitting beside each other in the briefing, and the gentleman giving the briefing was an XF1 driver, Esteban Gutierrez. And I remember we start walking to the cars, and he's standing where I'm supposed to go. And I'm like, wait, is this not the guy that just gave the briefing? And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is driving me. And then we get in the car, and he's a quiet guy. So I was trying to make conversation. He drops his phone by his foot halfway through the lap, casually picks it up, puts it in the cup holder, and I'm like freaking out, and they're just so calm. But yeah, I was such
No,
a highlight.
I would have freaked out. And I just love how F1 also just sets up moments for you to brush elbows with people like this. Like if if you get these opportunities, and I'm like, again, no other sport lines up these opportunities in that way over this weekend. So even seeing like I was so close to when Oscar was was driving and doing some hot laps with a couple of people and I was like, this is so cool. Like just imagine like you're just walking up for your hot lap and it's Oscar Piastri. Like I couldn't. I'd probably have
Yes.
passed out. So I'm glad I didn't get over there.
So, on the topic of storytelling,
Yeah.
which team or driver do you think is doing the best storytelling in F1 right now?
Oh my God. I mean, hands down, I obviously think it's McLaren. I love their graphics. I love just how they have amped up their online presence this year. And I'm like, I know that graphics team is working overtime, having two drivers like Oscar and Lando who are obviously making moves every single weekend. So I've just loved seeing how on it they are. But I also love Ferrari. Like I've always loved Ferrari's graphics colorways online. Like it's their team colors, but like it matters. Like what these graphics look like, these little funny moments that they're posting online. I really, really love it. And I'm in the Ferrari app all the time, looking at different data. I'm one of those F1 fans now. I'm looking at different data and storytelling moments, and it's like not every team has an app. Not every team has that. You don't get access to that with every team, so it kind of has helped me grow a bigger appreciation for Ferrari. But overall, I just love seeing the drivers get online and play. Like it's just so fun seeing them just not just always in their sport, but also doing other things because they are separately themselves brands as well. So like seeing Lewis on the circuit, like racing one day, then at the Met Gala, carpet the next day, or just seeing Carlos in all of his just beautiful, just hair moments and modeling shots. Like, funny, but like this is like really like this is they're building themselves as brands, and it's just so fun to watch. Like that's how you fall in love with every driver because they're on the internet doing stuff like that.
100%. You learn little bits about their personality, their hobbies, their
Yeah.
ventures outside of F1, and they're just complex people. And so breaking them down is very entertaining, but also very insightful. It
Yes.
always surprises me. They're so young and they're
Yes.
so mature and they can do so much. Their capacity to do stuff is insane. But
Yes.
yes. So let's move on a bit to a bit more about you. And so
Yeah.
obviously your work with Boardroom, but you're also a creator as
Yes.
well. I would love for you to share maybe about your creator journey and what do you think
Yeah.
people underestimate about being a creator?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I've been dabbling in the creator world since I started at Boardroom, just because I've been in such a unique position with a unique opportunity to go to all of the events and things that I've been to, from NBA All Star to Super Bowl. I've been to US Open, Masters, F1 races. Being in these audiences and like in front of, these people and having access to these events does not go over my head. I'm so appreciative. And I said, I have to start, sharing more about these opportunities. And a lot of people used to always ask me, like, we want to see behind the scenes. We want to see da da da. I'm like, what do you guys consider behind the scenes? What exactly do you want to see? Some of my friends were literally just like, I want to see your set. Like, I want to see your setup. I want to see what you're doing when you're waiting. I'm like, usually me and my camera person that I'm with are probably yapping or freaking out about if we're going to get this interview or not. You know what I mean? And so, they're like, yeah, we want to hear that yap. And so I started just sharing small moments, and some of it was recap videos and here and there. And then I don't know what hit me, but I woke up on December 31st, last day of the year, and last year, and I was like, I'm going to start taking this seriously, and I'm going to start betting on myself. I'm going to start doing this more consistently. I've always talked about wanting to do, tech product unboxings. I want to yap about my favorite TV shows. I want to do these little explainer videos here and there, and I just need to just dive into it. And I did that. So for almost the last, 7 going on 8 months, I've been doing that, and it's hard. It's hard to stay consistent. I've come up with a couple seriesable things that I do each week. Sometimes I fall off, sometimes I don't. Some weeks are more lively than others. It can be discouraging not seeing, your viewership or numbers grow. And I've learned to just roll with the punches, honestly, because consistency is the name of the game. I just keep telling myself, right now, you're getting your reps in, and that's what I'm trying to stick to. Definitely, I think the hardest thing has been balancing because I do still have a full time job. I do travel often for work. Some of the content that I do at home or, on the creator front when I'm doing videos at home, they're not necessarily for boardroom. They're for me. They're for what I'm building with my podcast or just me wanting to get online and yap. So creating space to do that, it's a little difficult sometimes, but fun nonetheless.
I hear you. Sometimes you want to feel like you want to film, not that you have to film. And,
Yes,
making space for that, because oftentimes when you feel like you have to film, that's when the output is not, what you want it to be anyway. So actually, at
exactly.
least it's a good segue to my next question. What do you do to prevent burnout?
Oh my gosh. You know what? Like recently I did burnout and I decided I was like, listen, I have to pour into the things that I know are going to pour back into me. So one thing that I do, I wake up between 5 and 6 a.m. during the week. I don't start my workday till 10 a.m. That's the time we start at boardroom. But I always tell people I have to have a day with myself before I go give my day to work. So typically in that like 5 to 9 time frame, sometimes I edit videos, sometimes I catch up on watching stuff on TikTok. Majority of the time it's me journaling, reading, and going to the gym, going for an extended walk, meditating, trying different things that'll bring my blood pressure and mind down from all the worrying, especially when I'm not, doing as much content or output as, whatever I want. But I really try to use that time for me. On Fridays, I try to have a no computer after I get off work. So after around 6 p.m., I try not to get on the computer for the rest of the evening. Oftentimes, I have to get on the computer at some point in the weekend because I'm doing a podcast, I'm doing my content calendar, whatever that may be. But I try to save that for Saturday and Sunday. That has helped me, try to take down my screen time. I also have a lot of hobbies. I literally like my loft looks like Tony Stark's lair up there. I have so many tech gadgets and I have PlayStations and I have headsets, and I try to not just interact with my gadgets when I'm doing content because then I resent them, like honestly. So I've just gotten into the habit more recently, especially with my Vision Pro, my Apple Vision Pro, of just putting it on and getting in there and exploring. Like I always get in there and FaceTime my family because it creeps my nieces and nephews out because my little persona is just like a floating head. And I'm like, oftentimes I'm like, this is good research of me just getting in here and interacting, even if I'm not doing content with something right now. And just like trying not to make everything work, especially in tech, because tech touches everything. Like we're doing something with tech all the time. I'm coming up with ideas in my head 24/7 of content I want to do. So I try to just find different ways to just interact with my products and not just think of it as work. But definitely that morning 4 hours I have to have with myself in order to not just avoid burnout, but keep a peace of mind.
For any creator watching this, I think that is such awesome advice of the discipline that it takes to actually give time back to yourself, because it's
Yeah.
really easy to just dive in and get on to the next thing. What's the 10,000 things on my to-do list I got to get done today that I'm always feeling behind, and that's not healthy. And so the
Yeah.
fact that you've built in that discipline in the beginning of your day and at the end of the week, I love that.
Thank you.
All right, so Michelai, we are going to move on to a milkshake tradition called Checkered Confessions. I am
Okay.
going to ask you 8 questions, and I just want your first gut reaction. There's no overthinking. One word responses are totally fine. If you feel that you
Okay.
want to elaborate a bit more, feel free. Ready?
Ready.
Okay. Number one, most underrated F1 driver.
My God, Kimmy Antonelli. I feel like everyone talks about him and they're like, oh my God, he was so good in the beginning. He's so bad now. And I'm like, oh, you just wait.
Yeah, he cried in his interview this weekend because he was
No, I
sad.
cried with him. I cried with him.
Exactly.
It's too much.
F1 team that's killing it on social right now.
McLaren, obviously.
Yeah, they do great. F1 race you'd love to go to
Oh
next.
my God, I have to go to Silverstone. I just feel like I just missed out this year. And I feel like even if I don't go with a brand or go under a media pass, like I really truly want to go to a race as a fan. And I feel like Silverstone would be the perfect race to do that.
And this year, the photographer that we work with, he said it's literally like Glastonbury for, F1 fans. It's a
Yes.
massive event, tons of music, lots of camping, everyone's in a good vibe. I agree with you. Go-to form of rest or recharge when you're offline. I know you shared with us, but what's the number one thing if you were gonna have,
I
if
would
you only
say
had 15 minutes?
I definitely would say reading. I do not read nonfiction. I only read fiction. I want to get lost in a book. I want it to be magical, take me to another realm because this current realm sometimes sucks. So I always read like fantasy, like I love thriller, I love a whole bunch of other stuff.
A small joy that's been getting you through busy weeks.
A small joy that's been getting me through busy weeks. Honestly, like it sounds lame, but like every week I have to submit my newsletter. And like on that Thursday, when I turn it over for edits, it is the biggest weight lifted off my shoulder that I then have to pick up again on Mondays. But I'm like, it is so cool to say that I've written this newsletter almost every weekend outside of, I think, two for the past 3 years. Like, that's major. Like, I
That
haven't
is
given this letter up a lot. So. It means a lot to me.
nice. Favorite boardroom story you've done?
Favorite boardroom story I've done. I would have to say the one I did most recently. I did a video on, oh my God, and this is a huge conversation in the office, but obviously the Love Island USA lore. I did a video breaking down like the data behind why season 7 was so successful by the numbers, despite the online discourse on a lot of the things that were happening. Peacock did exactly what it intended to do. It got the world talking, whether we loved it or hate it, we were still tuning in. And then I was able to also write some words about my thoughts on the season. And Peacock actually read my newsletter and reached out to me, and I'm having coffee with some people this week. And I'm
That's
like,
so
well, I'm glad I
exciting.
didn't say anything too crazy, but yeah, honestly, like again, going back to my point of just being honest in my reporting.
Awesome. Do you have a go-to song or routine before you have a big interview?
I don't have a go-to song. I would definitely say my routine, not even like a routine, but I'm obviously bald. And I do this thing where I slick my hair behind my ear. So sometimes me and my videographer, like, we'll just rile each other up and like I'll just start slicking my hair behind my ear. And honestly, that one gesture, when I get in front of a guest, like if I do that, it gets them laughing and we automatically break the ice. And then I'm like, I'm in it. Like, we're cool. Like, it's fine. So
Love that.
I'm like, my go-to if something crazy is happening, this interview is not going how it's going, I'm just gonna slick my hair behind my ear. We'll laugh about it and we'll be back calibrated.
I love that. Okay, last one. Creator you think deserves more spotlight.
Tasia Johnson, honestly, she is my favorite, one of my favorite people on the internet. And I think we have a lot of conversations just about how it's so hard being a minority in the creator space in general. And then when you're trying to do that in sport, in entertainment, in these kind of overcrowded spaces, you sometimes get overlooked or are oftentimes underappreciated. And she's built just a beautiful community of creators here in New York, especially for one fan. She's consistently hosting events for us. She has a Discord that she keeps up. And I'm like, this is a whole new, just like, she's introduced me to a whole new community of people. And honestly, just it's made me gain a whole new appreciation for her. So whenever I can give her flowers, I do. We were actually able to hang out in Miami and I got an extra ticket to go to the Ferrari paddock for the day with IBM and I brought her and she was just so appreciative and I was like blown away by it and then she, told me that was her first time in a paddock club. And I'm like she's one of the people that I have followed and learned so much about from F1 over the last year, 2 years. And just to hear that she's never been in a paddock club or never had that experience, and I was able to be a part of that for her, meant so much. But it also made me sad because there are so many women like her who are not getting that opportunity. So definitely shout out to my girl Tasha for
Yeah.
all she does.
That is a very kind thing for you to do. And yes, I know it's good. We should be talking about all of the amazing women who
Yeah.
are championing sports in general, not just F1. But yes, Michelet, we're obsessed. Thank you so much for taking us behind the scenes into your world. And for all the Milkshake girls listening, that's it for today. I'm going to link Michelet's socials at the bottom, so make sure you follow her and check out all of her content. And until next time, we will talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you.